Hello and welcome. It is I, Iron Raven, back yet again with my review of The Batman 2022. Now, I feel like this will be a particularly fun review given all the iterations that we've had of Batman over the years. So, in a way, I'm not necessarily just reviewing this film, but also those that came before. What got us to this point and what got us to this version of Batman. And does it hold up? Does it stand up against some of the better ones we've seen of the past? Is it any worse than what we've seen in the past? Well, let's just jump right into it. Now, first things first, I want to just kind of get out the way, to be perfectly honest with you. So bear with me here. As far as race swapping of characters, now, I'm not necessarily someone who's going to be like fully against race swapping of characters. I'm not necessarily, like I said, all for just go ahead and just doing it willy-nilly. No, that's not the case. It all depends on the project itself. It all depends on the characters that you're doing it with. It just, there are certain variables to take into account, like certain factors and this and that, as to where it feels like it would be necessary, where it feels like it wouldn't be necessary. In this film, yeah, given a lot of films that we kind of are seeing a lot nowadays where they're just doing it willy-nilly. They're not doing it in an organic fashion. They're more or less just doing it just to fill a certain spot for, that certain race or whatever like that. And here I'm going to just go ahead and say that it's it's not a big deal at all because first of all, for a couple of reasons. It's like, one, it doesn't necessarily like beat you over the head over, them race swapping certain characters or anything like that. Jim Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright in this film, who is quite good, he has. This is not the first time this has happened with him playing another character. This happened in Casino Royale back in 2006 with the Felix Leiter character, and I'm a huge fan of that movie. Now, I pretty much watched all those films and prepped for Casino Royale before that came out. Casino Royale was just like that film for me. It was just a huge deal that made me a true, honest to God Bond fan. And even going through all the series and this and that, I don't really think much of it, especially way back then where a lot of the stuff isn't really happening, where they're not like spoon feeding you that type of thing. And well, where you realize that it's the actor, it's what they bring to it that helps to elevate that role and make it good and make it their own. Where it feels like, okay, well, we could just do a little bit of a twist here. We're not doing it just necessarily make them a different color character, but because like, well, this is a good actor, it's like, well, we could do maybe just something a little bit different, and that's it. Hell, they even gave Daniel Craig crap just for being blonde. So that's one thing. And as well as the established history of Batman, as we know, way back in the 60s. Remember Eartha Kitt? She was a black Catwoman way back in the day. So that was done as well as Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, Two-Face, or, well, we never really quite got to see that, back in the original 89 Batman film. We had that happen before, but we didn't really bat an eye then because, like I said, it was just, people just going about their business, making movies. It was something different. Hell, I know comic book films really weren't established to that more modern, era just yet and everything. So probably a lot of people didn't think much of it or anything. But like I said, it was just a unique, interesting casting choice. Like Billy D. Williams, okay, fine, I'll roll with that. Although unfortunately, they actually race swapped him mid-series in the Joel Schumacher film Batman Forever with Tommy Lee Jones, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But then again, you can't really connect that film to the first two anyway, even though it's technically a sequel. But aesthetically and everything else, that's just it does not add up at all. So it really has no true connection whatsoever. So this has been done in the past with Batman. There definitely have been liberties taken before. So this is actually a repeated pattern with this franchise. So as far as these particular characters and like Catwoman and all that stuff, honestly, that's not a huge deal. There was a line later on in the film by Catwoman which is like a little unnecessary because once you hear it in various other things, it kind of gets annoying. But other than that, that's not enough to derail the film for me, flat out. Okay, that is what it is as far as this film goes. So there's that. So with that said, like I said, we've been through this pattern before with these films. So in this particular instance, it's not some in your face type of thing up until later on with that one bit of dialogue, if you ask me. but that's just me. Anyway, on to the rest of the film. I hope you're still sticking around. But yeah, the film itself, I will say that I can't say it's my favorite Batman film thus far, but I can say it's a contender to potentially be that. I'd have to see this probably at least a couple more times to fully take it in and just to really, see how I feel about it. Because it's, like I said, when you have so many variations of this, especially with this film in particular, where there's very much a mystery aspect given the Riddler and all of that, it definitely plays up more of the detective side and more of like clues and stuff we don't really get a whole lot of throughout the series. I mean, despite, being the world's greatest detective, that was an element that has been missing a lot over the years with this character. They don't really do that much. With this film, you very much get that. It's very film noir, which I can appreciate with this film. So, like overall, after my first viewing, I could definitely say it's probably up there in my top three for sure. I would say. Uh, so take that with what you will. So as I keep going along and trying to break down the film and how I felt about it. But yeah, aesthetically, I would say it probably is my favorite. Like there are definitely elements to this film that I would say are my favorite out of the franchise thus far. Like I said, aesthetically, the look of Gotham City, as far as having a nice modern looking city, but feeling and looking like a character in and of itself, which is what it should be, because Gotham City is a character in and of itself. You have to really get the feeling of that right in order to make it feel like, yeah, this is Gotham. This is Batman's Gotham. This is that gritty, underworld ridden, like just crime filled mess, but at the same time, you do have some nice some nice aesthetics to look at in various buildings or certain places, this and that. And this, I feel like, finds that perfect balance that we kind of have missed, especially in the Nolan films. I mean, we started with that with Batman Begins, where it had its own unique palette and it stood out on its own. But he very much lost that with the sequels, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. Now, despite how good The Dark Knight is, and, so maybe on The Dark Knight Rises, but aesthetically they're the same and everything, he kind of lost that. Just kind of just made it look like just a cleaner view. I mean, despite his great cinematography and everything, and despite that, it just looks like Chicago, and it just looks like any regular city. But the storytelling itself makes it help feel like, yeah, it's Gotham, but it's not like, Gotham, you know what I mean? And that was one thing I would say that the TV show actually did quite well, is having a very, like, timeless look to it, as far as, like, looking very old-fashioned but modern at the same time. And that this film kind of helps with, carry that sort of look and feel. So as far as that goes, I really like that. The bat suit in general, the more I was like just looking at it and just kind of taking it in, and just, the chest plate and everything and the removable part, like all of that, just looking at, I'm like, I'm actually quite digging this. I really am. I would say this is definitely one of my favorite designs out of the franchise so far. I just felt like it really did fit the aesthetic with the film noir, with the grittiness of this Gotham City and what they were going for. And being early on Batman, he's in it for like 2 years at this point in time, once we start the film. And so as far as the suit, the more I was like looking at it, and I realized, I'm like, I really do dig this suit. It really is a good blend of a nice, sleek design, yet it's still a bit amateur as far as maybe some, it just had a nice blend of like a sleekness and just kind of still like, maybe I'm in the early stages, like I'm not as like, as sleek as the Nolan suit and all of that stuff. So I really do dig that. Now, as far as the secondary characters, other characters that we get, like the villains, like Penguin and whatnot, the Penguin, I would say, I feel like he may outdo Danny DeVito for me. I feel like where Danny DeVito was really, really good, and of course it's just like, yeah, he made him practically a literal penguin, where I could compare him to like the Jack Nicholson one, where, it's like Jack Nicholson doing Jack Nicholson. This is like Danny DeVito, just like, being Danny DeVito, but with all the prosthetics and everything like that, so he can kind of help feed into that role more and all that. So you know what to expect, but you're not like blown away. You're just like the Heath Ledger Joker role, where it's just like a complete transformation, and that's kind of what this is, as far as especially the look, complete transformation for Colin Farrell and the voice he gives along with it. I'm like, I really would have bought him as being like almost like this is what this guy looks like pretty much. And so as far as that goes, as far as the characterization of the Penguin, I really dug it. I would love to see more of this character in later films, that is for sure. He definitely was a standout for the time that he got. I was definitely entertained by his Penguin. I'm like, that's very, very good. I applaud them for doing that. As far as this version of Catwoman, I would say that Zoe Kravitz did a fine job. I'm not like, I could take or leave Zoe Kravitz overall. I don't really watch a lot of her stuff that much. I just, I mean, but for what she was and what she had to do in this role, she was good. I will give it to her. She was good in this role. Would she have been my first choice? No. I mean, honestly, what my first choice would have been, I would have gone with Ava Green, because Ava Green, again, another actor from Casino Royale. I mean, I've loved her ever since I saw that movie, and I'm like, this woman is so damn good. If you've ever seen 300 Rise of an Empire, as much of a mediocre and forgettable film that is, she elevates that film absolutely so. With her role in that, holy shit, you would think that, man, she was doing Shakespeare almost. Like, she's just that damn good. She really is an underrated actress, and as far as like, yeah, as what you would normally expect Catwoman to be. Like I said, I've said for a while now that, man, she would be a damn good Catwoman, and I felt like if she was in here, like, that would have been just that much better for me. But not to take anything away from Zoe Kravitz, I know, but still, I'm just saying what I would have done. I was like Ava Green, just in general, because I feel like she would have nailed it, especially giving the right dialogue and all the stuff. She would have been friggin' phenomenal in that role. But that's just me. Jim Gordon, like I said, Jeffrey Wright, very good in this movie, very likable. Again, just kind of being a duo with Batman. He's definitely in a lot of scenes with Batman. There's probably not many scenes where he's acting alone. Like I said, he really is like right next to Batman and like all these crime scenes and all this stuff. And you really do get the sense that, yeah, man, he definitely respects Batman, and he's definitely just trying to do what he can to just, keep the city in line and to try to figure out what's all going on here. So I'll save Batman for a little bit, but as far as just the general story and the Riddler and what we're getting with that here is that, yeah, it is the Riddler. It's not what you normally get from the Riddler. I mean, as far as the general look, but as far as the execution, especially if you've gone and played the Arkham games, and where he's constantly like doing these video feeds and he's leaving these clues, and he's really also just showing his warped side, like where he's really just not mentally stable, where he's very much a great mind, but like I said, he's just out there, and he just seems like he could really lose his mind like at a moment's notice. And so that's what makes for, especially for the actor Paul Dano, who we know is playing him, especially for a guy like that is not like physically threatening, or you think like, yeah, you run into him on the street, it's like, no, you try anything, I'm gonna punch your nose in, like that sort of thing. But of course, like I said, it's just about his what he's able to do mentally, and how he's able to outsmart the Batman, the police, and to execute his plan. He does come across as a great threat, very much so. And so I felt like they actually did do a very good job as to going along, and as he's committing these crimes, leaving these clues for Batman and to figure out. I felt like that was done very well. Now, as far as the suit and everything, like I said, I mean, of course, it's not typical Riddler. Could they have done some things at least a little bit different? Perhaps. But as you watch the film and you take it in and you see where this is going and what they're really trying to do with this Riddler, it does kind of fit the character. And especially since in a lot of the darker scenes as well, where you may see him, attack someone or something and take him as a hostage to execute a later part of the plan. it works. You really don't think much about it. You just take in this character for what he is and just realize that, yeah, he's just deranged, and it just works. He's very much amateur, and like I said, yeah, as far as his fashion sense, if you will. So again, that works. So again, I can't really knock that too much either. So now let's move on to the man himself, the man of the hour, the Batman, Robert Pattinson. Now, of course, everyone has their say about Robert Pattinson. They've given him so much shit over the years for the Twilight, which, reasonably so. I mean, those boos, just whatever. But again, even he, as I've said in the previous video, he himself has made fun of it before. Since then, he's proven himself to be a credible actor. We know this by now. So all that aside, like I said, you can't really hold that over him anymore. But what does he do with this? Does he work as Batman? Does he work as Bruce Wayne? And the answer is, for the most part, yes. I feel that he does. I never really doubted him for a second as far as his Batman persona. I always felt like that throughout the film, as he has the mask on, as he's talking. Now, that's one thing, too, as well. I felt like he found a really good balance with the voice, not having to overdo it like what Nolan did in The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, because it was fine in Batman Begins for the most part, but in The Dark Knight Rises where they just like really ramped up the voice a little bit more, where it takes you out of the illusion of Batman just a bit. That's why I felt like, as great as The Dark Knight is, as great as Christian Bale is in that role, it's because of certain things like that in those later films to where it took me out of the Batman illusion just a bit. Not entirely, but it always did just a little bit, where it just never really clicked. Like, I felt like just mostly because of the voice and everything, I feel like it's just a little bit off. But here, I felt like he found that balance, kind of like what Keaton did back in the day, where he's just being subtle with his voice, and it's just, it's just enough just to work. And I feel like here, it was actually done quite well. And so, as far as the Bruce Wayne side of things, this is where you realize that this Batman still being early on and everything, and it does kind of cross maybe, I guess you could say, a bit gothic or emo, whatever word you want to use, a little bit as far as that, because this is still very much a damaged Bruce Wayne. He's not one, I guess, that you could say is fully maybe comfortable in that Bruce Wayne side of things, because even they say in the film, like as he's talking to Alfred, played by Andy Serkis, who's also, again, very good, just a phenomenal actor all around. He played, of course, Caesar and Planet of the Apes with the motion capture and this and that, and Gollum. So phenomenal actor, and definitely a good, well-fitted actor for the Alfred character, as someone who's very caring and just meant to be that mentor. But yeah, so they kind of do mention that he doesn't really make appearances a lot. He really does not. And so you could tell that he's very much in Batman mode most of the time. He doesn't really have that alter ego that he uses, public persona. He doesn't try to act a playboy or nothing like that. So you definitely don't get that here. I would be curious to see in maybe the sequel or one after that, like I said, where you start to see him be more comfortable and maybe start to utilize that side of himself more to try to do certain things or whatever. Maybe not. But as far as what we got here, I definitely saw, a little bit more of the human side of him in certain moments during the film when he was just being Bruce Wayne, and how he spoke certain lines of dialogue, but it wasn't entirely there. You could tell that he is just full on, like I said, just kind of committed to the Batman side of himself. So as far as that goes, like I said, you can kind of take or leave that. But again, for what it was, I honestly felt like it was actually done pretty well, and I did enjoy his performance. Now, as far as him, like where he ranks as far as the best Batmans, again, as far as where I feel the film is, I feel like it's up there, for sure. Michael Keaton, like he did a really solid job out the gate back then. Val Kilmer, I never thought was terrible. He was fine. Like I said, not a definitive version by any means, but he served the purpose for what they needed to for a more lightened version, but he was still solid. He had a good voice and everything. He still had a good look in the bat suit, so I'll give him that. Like I said, George Clooney, on paper, yeah, he makes a great Bruce Wayne, but of course, yeah, Batman, not really. Christian Bale, great Bruce Wayne, pretty solid Batman. It's just mostly despite the voice, if anything. I felt like Ben Affleck. I feel like all around he was the most well-rounded for the most part, at least, but he never really reached his full potential. I mean, let's just be honest. With a lot of those films and everything, I mean, it's too much of a mess to really, truly like just pin down like it. Is he gonna be up there? But I do feel like in a sense he still kind of is, from what at least I got. So for Robert Pattinson, like I said, he's probably up there as far as the top three, maybe four. As far as the Batmans that we've gotten so far, I definitely did enjoy his performance. Like I said, if we get a sequel, which, yeah, I'm sure we will, then I would like to see probably more of that Bruce Wayne side of things explored a little bit more. Just to kind of see more of that range from Batman to Bruce Wayne and this and that. And just to see what Robert Pattinson himself would bring to that side of the character. And as far as other side characters, like Falcone, played by what's his name? Crap, I'm completely blanking on his name now. But yeah, he was Jesus in in the Big Lebowski. I know the actor, but I'm just blank. As far as like that role, again, good for the minor supporting role that he is in for this film. You definitely get a sense of a nice like subtle like threateningness to him, if you will, for the little bit of scenes that he's in and how he kind of ties into things, and as you see throughout the film, how the the criminals and the history of Gotham and the unraveling of this mystery, and like I said, what the Riddler is trying to accomplish, and the the little connecting of the dots between all these different characters. It is actually quite fascinating, and I did find myself, because I do enjoy a good thriller, I do enjoy a good mystery film, especially when you throw Batman to the mix, as you should be a lot of time doing more detective stuff. I actually found myself like intrigued by the mystery itself and kind of where we, led ourselves to by the end of this film with the climax and all that stuff, which is pretty good. So as far as all that stuff, again, pretty solid. I felt like maybe some things could be done better, but like I said, all in all, not too bad at all. Not too bad. The score is phenomenal. I'm one of those people who feel like that pretty much all the iterations of the Batman theme that we have gotten have all been actually quite good. I never felt like any of the themes that we've had have been any more or less a Batman theme. Even the Schumacher films from Batman Forever, even I think that's still a great theme and it feels like a Batman. They all just have, of course, just their different variations and different feelings, but at the same time, none of them I feel like don't work. But this one really is up there as far as like a very strong, intimidating, like just it hits you when it's on and Batman's on screen, he's just whooping ass. It works quite well. So this is definitely one of the better ones. But like I said, as far as the overall variations that we've gotten some pretty damn good themes over the years that I feel like all resemble Batman and do work as well. But this is definitely a good one. The Batmobile is very much a muscle car that's that's tuned up to like 20. I mean, it's really a badass car, and it definitely works as an earlier version of what the Batmobile would be. And this whole film noir, it really is. It's kick-ass. It's just enough to work as the Batmobile. That is for sure. Especially with that chase scene with the Penguin, it absolutely works and it is fantastic. So all in all, the Batman 2022. I would say it's a pretty damn good film. Like I said, I'd have to see it at least one or two more times to fully see where I stand with it. But as a Batman film, it is actually pretty damn good. So of course I would recommend it. But then again, I'm probably the last guy you're looking to watch a review for. I mean, hell, it's already been out since Thursday, so I'm just I'm just out here just doing my thing and just giving my thoughts. But with this film, it's pretty fun to talk about. Like I said, especially with all the given iterations that we've had of live action Batman so far. So I would say it is definitely up there. I would definitely say it's probably, honestly, I hate trying to do number ratings, I'll be honest with you. I would say it probably is within the the 8 out of 10 range for me personally. It's just, yeah, it's a really good film. It definitely leaves you wanting to see where potential could go for a sequel. So even if you felt like there's some things a little off here and there, a sequel could definitely ramp things up a bit more for sure. And it's not like some lost cause or anything. Some maybe nitpicks here and there, but all in all, it's a pretty decent film, and it leaves me wanting to see where they can go with this. So there you have it. Anyway, I've babbled on long enough about Batman. So thank you very much for watching. If you stuck all the way through, I'd greatly appreciate that. I definitely did the best I could to break things down for you as best I could. So with that said, thank you very much for watching. I am Iron Raiden, and I am out.